Everything sports, everybody, and it's Friday. We're here at noon, so I hope that everybody's getting ready. Get your lunch, come in, sit down, talk to us, leave a comment, and we'll be happy to have you. Matt, good to have you back, buddy. I know you've been traveling, and good to get you back in the building today.
Yeah, good to be back. It was I would have much rather been here than on the road yesterday, but sadly that was what I was stuck with.
There
So
you go. Now, sometimes you can't help it. Travel
yep.
is travel. The Genesis tournament at the Riviera Country Club. Um, for those who don't know, it's obviously the Riviera Country Club is in Los Angeles, but it happens to be in the area um, of the Pacific Palisades. And remember, many of you may remember last the terrible fires they had, short while back ago.
Hmm.
And one of the places that was hit hardest was the Pacific Palisades, which is where the Riviera Country Club is actually located. And fortunately, um, the club itself was not damaged, but it's a phenomenal golf course. And one of the things that you really don't see, because you'll see it when they do the aerial shots, Matt and everybody else, from Riviera, is the actual clubhouse itself sits about maybe a half a mile from the Pacific Ocean. So while last week we saw the Pacific Ocean, in the shots because it's it's Pebble and Pebble's on the ocean. Uh,
Hmm.
you don't think of Riviera on the ocean, but Riviera is literally just across the Pacific Coast Highway from from the Pacific Ocean. So you get that same kind of stuff that you get at Pebble, only at Riviera from a standpoint of you get sometimes you get the fog, sometimes you get the misty stuff, sometimes you get the wind. It's all there. But when they built Riviera, they built kind of like a buffer with trees to kind of keep that from being as big of a problem as it is up at Pebble. But they're not that it's not that far from the Pacific Ocean, so it does. There's going to be some effect to that, and when you watch the tournament, you'll get a chance to see that. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
you have the leaderboard up for us.
yeah. Aaron Rye and good Lord, I can't even say that I've ever seen it. Marco Pinge or
Okay.
Pinge. They are currently tied for the lead at 6 under right now.
Hmm.
Rye is now underway in his second round. He's 1 under, so uh, Pinge has yet to get going today.
Okay.
It was interesting yesterday. Going back, is they had to delay that first round due to rain yesterday.
Hmm.
They came back out. When they came back out, it was nice. It was sunshiny.
Hmm.
But with that came soft conditions and winds of roughly 20 miles an hour.
Hmm.
Uh, and it affected the players. Like it was not playing easy yesterday. Scotty Scheffler was God, what was he? He was 5 over when they finally blew the horn because they didn't even finish the entirety of the first round
Hmm.
yesterday. Um, but it was playing really soft. Rory McIlroy made comment to how soft it was playing in his interview with Golf
Hmm.
Channel after this round. Um, and he talked about it. He said that he really hopes that the sun comes, it doesn't rain anymore because Riviera really needs to firm up. There was a shot of Adam Scott yesterday on one of the par threes, had the ball in bed in the green about 6 inches from the hole,
Oh
like
my God.
like right next to the hole. But it was like it embedded in it. It was in the ground. So it's playing really soft. It's playing far too soft. Rory talked about it. He said, on 18, I hit a 9 iron, just short of that pin, and it spun back 30 feet with 20 mile an hour helping winds. He said that shouldn't be happening,
Hmm.
this course, and when it does happen, it just makes it almost like impossible to play. Really,
Hmm.
yesterday it was very hard to judge. A guy who was tied for the lead yesterday, and Jacob Bridgman, basically said he was just out there flying blind.
Hmm.
Didn't really was just kind of flying by the seat of his pants. Didn't really know what to expect, and that seems to be the case. But the guys that did not finish their first round have actually had the advantage of coming out and finishing this morning. It was colder, so the ball probably wasn't flying as
Right.
well. Still pretty damp with the dew in the morning, but the conditions were much easier. Scheffler finished in 2 under. Xander Schauffele shot a couple under as well. He finished at 3 under after that first round. And so, Scotty's in a place now where he's +3. And yesterday, when he marked his ball, he was +5, green at 11. So they benefited. It's one of the 3-player hosted signature events. And so it has a cut. It's not a very big cut, but it has a cut. So it's fun. It's different. It's interesting. It's Riviera, which makes it worthwhile. But hopefully you will be able to have it firm up a little bit so the scoring conditions change and it plays a little bit more like Riviera should.
The weather report for the rest of the week, and it's going to be partly cloudy today. There is no rain scheduled today. The high is going to get to around 60 degrees. Tomorrow and Sunday, perfect weather. 70 degrees is a high tomorrow, and 73 on Sunday with full sun. So they should be in good shape as we move into the remainder of the weekend. Hopefully, if the clouds part enough and they get enough sun this afternoon, that'll start to dry out the fairways and the greens.
Yeah, that would be the hope, because it's something that Rory's harped on it a lot this week, but he has harped on the course itself and the course conditions. And I will be honest, I don't necessarily disagree. They made a change to lengthen. It was 237-yard par 4 or par 3 the last time they played back in 2024 at Riviera, and they decided to lengthen it by 40 yards. It's like a 270-odd yard par 3 now, and Rory's basically talking about the type of rough that Kikuyu, however you say it. I know I butchered that, but that rough isn't conducive for that long of a hole. It doesn't allow for the land and run out really that you need in order to hit the green. And they only hit it 15% of the time when it was a 237-yard par 3.
Sure.
Now, I think you're going to be nothing short of lucky to be hitting that green.
Well, one of the things that they had issues with at Riviera earlier, and I say issues, I'm talking about the players, was that the course at times played too easy. So you get to that point where, okay, what do we do to make the course difficult but not ridiculous? And it seems like in attempting to hit that happy medium, they hit ridiculous on that particular hole, because that doesn't sound right. But all that being said, watching the tournament Riviera is a treat, and the Genesis is always a fun tournament. So if you are fans like we are, check it out. I think you'll be quite pleased with that.
Yeah, if this gives you a good a good idea of the way Riviera is playing this morning, and as of right now, the guys out on the golf course right now, 3 players are over par and they're at +1. So wow. It's playing hard. It's playing a little more scoreable in terms of the conditions right now, because the wind's died down and it's still pretty soft. So if you hit a fairway and you hit a green, you're gonna have a pretty good shot to get up and down for a birdie.
All right. Well, let's slip over to college basketball. Tomorrow, St. John's and Creighton. That's your game at noon on Fox. St. John's, of course, number 17 in the country. Rick Pitino's team. They are hosting Creighton. Florida in Ole Miss is on ESPN. That's your noon game on ESPN. The CW has Florida State at Clemson. Let's see if there's any other games early on that are of interest. North Carolina, number 16 in the country, is going to take on Syracuse. That's the 1 o'clock game on ABC. And then there's a lot of, I guess, Nebraska hosting Penn State at 2 o'clock on Big Ten Network might be of interest to some people. Tennessee Vandy, that's at 2 o'clock on ESPN. Miami and Virginia, that's at the Deuce. That's also at 2 o'clock. I don't think we get excited until 3 o'clock when on ABC. Number 4 Arizona travels to Houston to play the Cougars. That's a 3 o'clock game on on ABC. And that should be a pretty good game. Arizona and Houston.
Yeah, who said we had to wait for April to get the Final Four?
Yeah, looks that way, done.
Yeah, 1-3 and 2-4 play each other on Saturday, which is impressive. I don't know how it works. I remember hearing about it. I don't know how Michigan and Duke are playing in the middle of the conference schedule like this, but I'm glad they are. Like, this is maybe I don't know in terms of like a full slate overall, but these are the two, like, the best slate of 2 games that you're going to get all season in college basketball. They're the best of the best, and it's a situation where in that Duke and Michigan game, you're going to see Michigan get a little bit different of a test. I know they went on the road to Purdue, and they handled their business there, but yeah, Purdue just looked outmatched in terms of the style of play. Somebody, I can't remember where I saw this, but somebody made the comparison of, like, it's like the suburban AAU team going to play in the inner city tournament AAU team, where you run into that larger concentration of talent,
right?
And they just realize that they are outclassed. That's what it felt like watching Purdue and Michigan, where Michigan just felt like they kind of ran up and down the floor on them. They were bigger, faster, stronger, all of the above. So you're going to get a much more evenly matched test from a Duke team that's really been one of the best teams in the country. Like we talked about it with that North Carolina game, they kind of let that one get away. They led the entire game with the exception of that last second shot. So that's going to be a fantastic game. And then you've got Arizona and Houston, and what could be your preview of the Big 12 title game. This is what I talked about with the Big 12 is maybe it's lacking a little bit of that depth, but the top end talent is the best in the country, bar none. So you're getting the absolute best on Saturday with really what is a younger, star-studded Arizona team, and then that same kind of mentality that Kelvin Sampson's had since he got to Houston. Not as many big names, but boy, do they just play a really good brand of team basketball.
I'm actually going to be covering the game, Duke and Michigan, in Washington. The game's going to be played at the Capital One Arena in Washington. I'm a little curious as to why there's a 6:30 tip time for that. As a matter of fact, I did check with the folks at the center, and they tell me that on the big screen they'll be watching. Fans who get there early can be watching the the Arizona Houston game. So it's going to be a very interesting situation. But yeah, it's Michigan Duke playing each other at a neutral site, I think is quite interesting. What Washington D.C. does each year is to bring a key game to in this season into the Capitol Center. I mean, Capitol Center, Capital One Arena, and it's this year's Michigan and Duke, and they planned this thing years in advance, so you couldn't have asked for a better luck out that they got in DC than getting your number 1, number 3 team. Yeah. And I guarantee you there'll be a lot of Duke fans at that game, but there will be also a lot of Michigan fans at that game.
Yeah, two really big basketball fan bases, 2 fan bases that they're relatively affluent, so they have the ability to travel. Washington D.C. a little bit closer, I think, to Duke than it is to Michigan, but yeah, you'd expect both fan bases to show up because I mean they're just national brands, two of the biggest brands in
Yeah.
basketball, the best teams in basketball.
Surprisingly, to some, the East Coast, the I-95 corridor, there's a lot of Michigan graduates. There's a lot of kids from DC, Philly, New York who go to Michigan. So Michigan has a pretty, well, Michigan obviously is a much, much, much bigger school than Duke. But there's going to be if I had to guess, it'd probably be about 50-50 in the audience for that game. And there's a lot of people from Maryland and in the DC area who are not fans of Duke, so they may just, if they get tickets, they may just be Michigan fans for one day in that situation. But yeah, that should be a good one. Let's see what do we got. I'm looking down the schedule here.
You also have with those two games, you're now in a place where you're talking about like this is a Saturday that could determine who the number one overall seed is in this tournament.
It's a line. It's a line game.
Yeah, if things were to hold, because I mean, you got the top four teams. If number 3 Duke were to like handle Michigan, that's a big plus in their category when you look at their overall resume. Same goes for Houston. Same goes for Arizona. Like all of these schools. And then obviously, if Michigan wins this one, I feel like they are planted on that number one overall seed.
I'm looking at anything later in the evening that might be entertaining. I always enjoy watching St. Mary's. They're playing at Washington State. That's a 10 o'clock game on ESPN2. Utah State, Nevada is on FS1. Iowa State and BYU. That's a 10:30 game on ESPN, and that's number 6 Iowa State, number 23 BYU. So that might be an entertaining game. Let's see, we have some games on Sunday. Starting off at noon with UAB at Memphis. UAB's trying to stay relevant in the American Conference. Memphis lost last night, and they may not. The way that the American has changed their basketball tournament format is only the 10 top teams get in. So it's conceivable that Memphis may not even make the American tournament. They need to win over UAB, and they're playing at home. That's going to be interesting. Ohio State, Michigan State. That's a 1 o'clock game on Sunday at CBS. Looking for something else. Florida Atlantic, North Texas. I don't see anything there that's overwhelming. UTSA in Tulsa, and Iowa at number 24. Wisconsin is a 4 o'clock game on FS1. So that's your games for the weekend as far as college basketball goes, at least the primary ones. Strongly recommend, if you want to always check, the entire week's worth of college basketball games and where you can find them, go to our buddies at 506 Sports. That's 506sports.com. They will give you all the information that you need. There you go. All right, my man, we get to see some baseball today. In about 30 minutes in Tampa, 30 minutes in Sarasota, I should say. It's going to be on Major League Baseball Network, as well as MASN for those of you who get it, the Baltimore area, and Gotham Sports in New York. It's going to be the Yankees and the Orioles. Rodriguez against Rogers. Kansas City at Texas. That's a 3:05 game. That game is not televised anywhere. The White Sox and the Cubs. That's on the Marquee Network. For those of you in the Chicago area, that's a 3:05 start. Cannon and Tellien pitching in this game. Arizona, Colorado. That's a 3:10. That both the games are on the two Arizona and Colorado networks, which for those of you who are starting to watch your teams on new non-regional sports networks, The folks in Arizona know the drill. It's on Diamondbacks.tv. For those of you in Colorado, you also know the drill. It's on Rockies.tv. Then tonight on, later in the afternoon, I should say, at 3:30 p.m. on the Major League Baseball Network, is going to be San Diego and Seattle with the 3 p.m. start. Haynes and Dunning in that game. Red Sox fans, that's a 105. That's the Northeastern University, I think, right? Is taking on Boston.
That's correct. Yep.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's right. You're correct.
Which is, by the way, for those of you who are unaware, it is a 4-block walk from Northeastern University to Fenway Park. From that standpoint. And the University of Minnesota makes a trip down to Fort Myers to take on the Minnesota Twins. By the way, O'Connor's pitching for Northeastern University, for those of you, Husky fans. And for you, the Gophers, we don't know who's pitching. It says right here, to be determined. And Matthews will. It's always fun, in those early games when they play those games and give the kids a chance to play. It's always fun to see, an opportunity to see those, those kids play against major league talent.
Yeah, and this is the way that Boston starts every spring training with this game against Northeastern, and it's also the way the Red Sox fan base works is also a fantastic opportunity for people to overreact to what happens in the game. A college kid strikes out somebody who's supposed to be a major league hitter. Now the world's falling. Are they ever going to be
right? It's the first time they walk up to the plate for the first, for a spring training game.
Yeah, you get no grace period. If you strike out against a college pitcher, your season is done.
You're cooked.
Yeah.
A lot of free baseball over the weekend on Saturday. Houston, Washington, 105. That game's free on Nats.com. Nats.tv. For those of you in Houston, you can watch it on Space Network, the one that they are with the Houston Rockets on. Baltimore, Pittsburgh and Baltimore. That's another Baltimore gets their second game in a row over in Sarasota. Pittsburgh takes a 7-mile drive from Braden to Sarasota for that game, and that'll be on Masson. Washington, St. Louis, that's a split game. No TV for that one. Boston, Minnesota, you're back on Nesson again. That's a game between two teams that train in Fort Myers. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, that's on Rays TV, but it's free to everybody on the MLB TV app, or just MLB TV or MLB.TV. You can see it. Detroit at Yankees, that's the Yes Network, and of course it's the new Detroit Tigers.com. Phillies, Toronto, that game's on Sportsnet and also on NBC Philadelphia. Miami and the Mets, SNY, 3 o'clock as we move over to the Cactus League. Cincinnati, Cleveland, that's going to be on both the outlets for the clubs there. San Diego, KC, no TV on that one. Texas and the Cubbies, that's again on marquee. All the games, all of the Cubs, all of the Red Sox, all of the Yankee games this season during spring training will all be televised on the networks that you are used to watching them on. Athletics and the Cubs play, that's on the new Chicago Sports Network group. Colorado, Arizona, and the Dodgers. The Dodgers and LA takes on their not subway, right? Okay, what are they? Freeway. There we go. The freeway group. It's the Dodgers taking on the Angels, and Yamamoto is going to throw the ball for For the Dodgers, yeah, let me look and see Frisco and Seattle, and Cleveland, Milwaukee. That kind of rounds out your first day of opportunity to see some your major leaguers at work. So there you go,
Yeah.
boys.
It, I think spring training for most people, like there needs to be context that is put around in it. Like this is an opportunity for you to kind of watch some carefree baseball. People tend to overreact to spring training. It's something that I just don't understand.
Mhm.
Typically speaking, uh, the correlation of spring training success or failure does not carry over. Like there is no correlation to what it looks like in the regular season most of the time.
Mhm.
Like for example, I'm pretty sure last year in spring training, William Abreu hit like a buck 25 throughout the entirety of spring training, and then he came out in the regular season and the like I think it was the second game of the year he hit 2 homers. He started off the season scorching hot. It's just not. It just doesn't do a really good job of indicating success because what a lot of this is it's time to warm up. It's time for these. It's time for these players to work on stuff and a lot of times fans see this and they'll overreact to success, they'll overreact to failure. Really, what it is, it's a time to watch the young prospects if you've got them.
Mhm.
Enjoy that, kind of get to know a little bit more about them, and
Mhm.
just enjoy the baseball. Because in reality, what these games mean is next to nothing unless it's deciding roster spots.
Yeah, and the other thing too, especially during a World Baseball Classic, is you're going to have some of the players that you normally would want to see are going to be playing very soon, next week, as a matter of fact, on their World Baseball Classic teams. So they're not going to be at spring training, which
Mhm.
gives a lot of players an opportunity. Some of these young players we talked about, an opportunity to play over, to get some everyday reps, and gives the organization a really good opportunity to see how these kids will play if they have to bring them up during the course of the season.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what like some of these guys are fighting for roster spots.
Hmm.
Some of them are a little more concrete than others. Like even
Sure.
though they're saying they're fighting for a roster spot, they may not actually be fighting for a roster spot.
Hmm.
I think the example of that is Alex Cora came out today and said that Marcelo Meyer is not guaranteed a roster spot on the Red Sox opening day roster when they open the season up in Cincinnati. I that feels more like an empty threat than anything. But when they say it, I think they mean it to some extent.
Hmm.
And then there are some guys who genuinely are, maybe they're top prospects, and you feel like they're close, but you're just not sure. And if they come in and they put together a really good spring training, then they're guys that can make the roster.
Hmm.
And that happens. I wouldn't say it's a very common occurrence, but it
Hmm.
happens, especially if they're at a position of severe need for you.
The other thing too is that a lot of the teams will sign minor league contracts to
Mhm.
pitchers and field and field players, and this will get them the opportunity to prove whether or not because a lot of those teams when they sign them to minor league contracts, they're doing it to see, okay, is this person going to give me any value, and they can tell pretty quick if that's going to happen. And if it's not going to happen, then they turn around as just as quick, and give them the opportunity to perhaps catch on with another team. So they try to get those guys who they sign to those types of contracts and get them set up to move, to evaluate them as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So,
So there you go on that. Um, Rich Eisen on his show yesterday was talking about the Dodgers and how um, how people don't quite understand the Dodgers' theory of how to do things. He was talking about they signed 3 players in the offseason who had injuries that will not allow them to play until sometime around the All-Star break. And he had a couple of different people on to talk about that. And they were just Rich. It was Jeff Passan was one of them, and Jeff said that that when you're one of the things that Andrew Friedman does probably better than anybody, he says they'll sign people to smaller contracts, shorter term, that are injured, and then when they need depth, these guys are there.
Yeah, it's something.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know how common practice it is.
Mhm.
It's something that the Red Sox have done recently as well. I'd be
Mhm.
lying if I said it's been, a great success
Right.
based on the guys that they chose. But they going back a couple years, Lucas Giolito last year, he was a
Sure.
guy who they signed him coming off an injury.
He's still out there.
Well, no, yeah, he's still a free agent.
Yeah.
And they had signed him a couple years ago,
Mhm.
coming off what I think was his Tommy John surgery.
Second, by the way.
Yeah, out in LA. And then, he finally broke camp and he got hurt again. Finally, they got the return on investment they were looking for last year. That's really the only one that they've had success in with it. But they've done that a lot. Patrick Sandoval is another guy that they've had kind of sitting, waiting around because he had a Tommy John surgery as well. And he's waiting in the wings, and now he's starting to get healthy. And I think an underrated aspect of this is if these guys do bounce back and they do pan out, and these guys are considered depth, they're really good. They're really good pieces at the trade deadline that you can afford to part with for potentially something productive down the line. If you don't need them then, and they're a really good player and they bounce back to a form that was their prior form, and they're going to make for a fantastic trade chip. James Paxton, that's another example in Boston as well, and they ended up flipping him for some prospects. So it has the opportunity to work out if executed correctly, but sometimes it's a coin flip. Like you don't know what you're going to get out of these guys when they're coming off injuries like this.
Yeah, they think the thing that Passan said that with the Dodgers was that they spend a great deal of time going over, these guys because the investment is not a big investment. Okay, it's not like they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these guys. I think the 3 guys that they signed, whose names I do not have with me, tallied up to somewhere around $20 million. And basically $20 million to the Dodgers is kind of like tip money. So, if they pan out, great. If they don't, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, because they're not, because they're injured, they're not on the 40-man roster.
Yeah.
So you're not carrying anything that's gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
And as you say, they could be trade bait, or who knows? They may be somebody can help you out down the stretch.
Yeah, and especially when you have the roster or the financial flexibility that the Dodgers do, it essentially eliminates all risk in signing this. Like the risk on some teams, like the risk for when the Red Sox do that is they have a self-imposed cap that they do their best to stick to. That takes a couple $1 million away from your cap where maybe you could allocate it somewhere else. But when you're the Dodgers, it removes all that risk. You only see the upside in that. And it's something that still has upside for teams that don't have the same financial flexibility. But, you're not going to do it as much or as often because you don't have the same financial flexibility to just be able to carry an extra $3 million sitting around in your back pocket or an extra 1.5 in the back pocket going against your cap number.
Right. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you look at it and go, okay, well, was it worth it? Well, it could be. And if you're willing to take a flyer and you've got the money to do it, then off you go, right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So
Because yeah, there's just no reason. There's no reason not to if you have the financial
mhm.
flexibility.
Earlier this week we talked about the NCAA game. It was at Michigan State and UCLA the other night where um, the coach tossed his own player,
Oh
um,
yeah. Yep.
and for some reason the coach is getting all kinds of blowback on that. I kind of felt that, you know, if you are 20, and his as he mentioned in the press conference that well, we were 25 points behind.
Yeah.
He said, I don't like, he goes, that type of play from my players, you know under the, if we were ahead 25 points, let alone, because it's not something I want to tolerate. And he was getting fried on some of these shows from guys going, well, if the official didn't see it and didn't call it a foul, then why did he take him out? Well, he took him out because sometimes you actually want to teach kids something, and you want to teach them that, hey, look, you're good, you're better than that. And that's
Moment.
exactly what he said. He
And
said,
I
this
know.
guy's, go ahead, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And
Yeah.
I think those are all good and fair.
Hmm.
I didn't love it because it almost felt like he was like making a show of it.
Hmm.
Um, I have absolutely no problem with pulling the guy, sticking him
Hmm.
at the end of the bench,
Right.
stuff like that. I don't know if I love the full out,
Hmm.
completely throwing him out of the game. That
Right.
felt like a little bit much. It was a hard foul, but it wasn't like he
Right.
just went up and punched the guy in the back of the head.
Right.
Um, so there is that aspect, and I think if we're being fair, I
Hmm.
think a lot of the criticism almost felt justified, or people were able to double down on it based on his post game press conference
Hmm.
and kind of the way that he acted in that post game press conference. He
Hmm.
was very agitated, quick to quick to jump on that reporter's head who asked him about the student section.
Right.
You can argue as to whether or not that was a good question.
Hmm.
I'm probably on the side of it. It wasn't a fantastic one.
Hmm.
But regardless, people as journalists, sometimes you ain't gonna get it right. You're gonna ask a bad question.
Right.
If you don't, then you're just not asking questions at all.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was. I think it just compounded mainly because of that post game presser, and it
Hmm.
was kind of like all encompassing. You add that on top of a 20-point loss.
Hmm.
Overall, I think you just caught Mick Cronin on a pretty bad night
Hmm.
uh, at the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic because I've seen Tom Izzo go off on the press after a game, where he lost and he was pissed off. And it's coaches. You're right about putting the guy at the end of the bench. You want to teach him a lesson. Say, okay, fine, you're going to go over there, sit down, and you're not coming back.
Yeah,
Uh, did he go over the line and by sending him to the locker room? Maybe he was just pissed off and said, you know what, it's just I don't even want to see you. Just go back in the locker room. But at the end of the day, I mean, coaches are human. Okay, they're going to react in ways sometimes that you're going to like, and sometimes in ways that you're not going to like. And as long as he didn't hit the guy, and basically send him back, you know, the kid, the kid was interviewed, and he said, "Look, he goes, did I like getting tossed from the game by my coach? No, but at the same time, he goes that the coach has been very good to me.
yeah.
So he didn't take it. You know, in other words, I don't think it strained his relationship with the coach.
And I think that's where the criticism disappears, right?
Hmm.
Is people are can be very critical of a coach and the way they treat a player.
Hmm.
They'll media gets up there and talks about it. I
Hmm.
remember when Mario Cristobal, man, when he was at Oregon, there was
Hmm.
one time there was a receiver ran over. I forget what happened, what the exact situation was.
Right.
And I mean, Mario Cristobal just lets this kid have it
Mhm.
sideline. And people are like ripping Mario Cristobal, but the player was fine with it. The
Right.
player, he handled it well. And that's the difference. Like that's where it is a good
Mhm.
coach and player relationship where you are allowed to do stuff like this. Like you're
Mhm.
allowed to coach hard. Coaching hard is not something that's extremely commonplace,
Right.
especially the lower rungs now in
Mhm.
athletics. Because I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. People are softer and they get their
Mhm.
feelings hurt more.
Right.
Um,
And
and
then go to the transfer portal.
yeah, and you can go to a transfer portal and you can switch stuff up and people complain and the coaches are in a harder position than ever. But hard coaching is the best way to improve. Like,
Mhm.
and it comes from a place where when you hear the guys talk about it like that's the way things are. This guy knows that the coach
Mhm.
still loves him, but that's the way he coaches and
Mhm.
that's the way he goes about his business.
Mhm.
And as long as the players understand that and they're okay with that and they respect the guy and it's a one-off thing because that's what you're supposed to get out of sports
Mhm.
is that player is now going to be
Mhm.
probably better off having had that experience now than if he weren't to have had it, if he were to have just been left in the game. So it's fine, but it's something that is established that the media, us from this
Right.
1,000-foot view we have of it, we can sit here and go, well, optically, that's a terrible look, and that's fine.
Mhm.
But what goes on in that locker room or that clubhouse,
Right.
it's up to those individual players and coaches and their relationship, and they know it better than anybody sitting
Right.
behind a keyboard ever has and ever
Right.
will. So as long as their relationship is, if their working relationship is like that, then that type of coaching is perfect and it is good and it is fine. And I have no problems with it.
Well, I remember Jimmy Johnson was that kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy was a fiery guy. I remember Jimmy grabbing, not I say grabbing, basically by the shoulder pads, um, Marvin Bratton one day. Bratton was a star, right?
Yeah.
And he's got Bratton, and he is just reaming Bratton out. And Bratton goes and sits down, and on the bench. And what they don't show is about 10 minutes later, Jimmy's over there, on his knee talking to Marvin again in a in a tone which is much different. And after the game, some of the people from the Miami Herald and other places went to Marvin and Stalocker, and they said, "Boy, Coach ripped you out for." He goes, "Coach had a right to rip me out." He says, "I made a mistake." He said, "You know what?" He goes, "That coach," he said, "if he didn't care about me, he wouldn't yell at me."
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that happened. Like I mean, hell, I remember in
Mhm.
2021, Georgia was heading to the locker room against Michigan. They had like a 20, I think it was 24-3 at that point.
Mhm.
Um, they had a pretty comfortable lead.
Mhm.
Stetson Bennett didn't execute something in the 2-minute
Right.
offense correct, and they're jogging off the field,
Mhm.
and Kirby Smart is like red in the face, yelling.
Right.
But that's what they could do. Like you see the differences because then after Stetson leaves, Carson Beck's the quarterback. You
Mhm.
Kirby and Carson didn't have that kind of relationship. They didn't have that same working
Mhm.
relationship. When you see Kirby Smart interacting with Carson Beck on the sidelines, it was like arms over the shoulder pads, talking to him
Mhm.
calmly. So it is a player by player case,
Sure.
and not all of them. It doesn't work for all of them. But when
Right.
you have a certain type of relationship, that is the absolute best thing you can have for your football team and for those players, I think.
Well, I think the other thing too is you have to know the mentality and the temperament of the coach.
Hmm.
If you go to play for Jimmy Johnson back in that day, back at Miami, Jimmy was never gonna. He was not gonna let you off. If you put in a half-assed, performance on the field, and it
Yeah.
didn't matter. And, and I think when you look at the fact that he had a Marvin Bratton and did it, and others that he did it to, he did it, and they respect that. I mean,
Yeah.
if the coach, a lot of coaches, Dennis wasn't like that. Okay. And some of the players were like, well, they didn't know whether he cared about them or didn't, because, you know, if something happened, he would give him I'm disappointed with what how you handled that. Well, okay, they're just coming off of having Jimmy smack them on the shoulder pads, screaming in their face, and
Mm-hmm.
then they got Dennis, who's much different in his coaching style, and they
Yeah.
figured it out. They go, okay, I understand now. Okay, after a couple of games they play, they get that. Okay, Dennis isn't like this. Dennis
Yeah.
isn't Jimmy. He's not going to beat us up. He's not going to scream at us. He's going to that the worst thing that you could get from him was he's disappointed. Same thing with Bowden. Bowden would yell, but Bowden didn't curse at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so the worst thing that you could have him say to you is "Dag nabbit," you're it was like having Andy Griffith yell at you. It wasn't going to happen, but you knew that he was pissed at you.
Yeah. And that's what, like, there's different ways to do it, but
Mhm.
I think the form that we're talking about is like it's good because it's acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Like, you
Yeah.
have to acknowledge that you've done something wrong, I think, in order to
Mhm.
learn from it. And
Sure.
when you learn from the wrongdoings and what you've done wrong, then you get better overall. And acknowledgement can come in many different ways. That's the reason there's many different coaching styles. This just happens to be the loudest and most, like, in your face form of,
Mhm.
like, hey, you doing something wrong. And if a player can take it, that means
Mhm.
they can accept that criticism. And when they can accept that criticism, boy, you're on a quicker road to improving, I think, as an individual and as a team.
Yeah, and having done a number of games with Bob Knight back in the day, uh, what people used to say to me, well, what kind of coach was Knight? And I go, evidently he was a damn good one, because, you know, I can't remember more than maybe a handful of players in the 4 years I was doing basketball in the Big Ten, who didn't love him to death.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
they to this very day, you talk to guys who played for him, and they are talk religiously about him.
yeah. And you think about, like, Danny Hurley now
Yeah.
at UConn. I mean, this is a guy who he loses it on the refs. You've got I've seen some of, like, their inside.
Danny's crazy. Yeah,
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 and he runs that thing as strict as you can. But
right.
yet he's still got 5-star players and transfer portal
Mhm.
guys lining up to come play for him.
Yeah,
So it's proof of process for these guys.
right,
And even though it may not always optically look fantastic, it
right.
works.
Mhm. John Wooden used to be someone who never yelled at players, but you knew that there was a problem. Conversely, John Thompson was a guy who yelled at everybody. Hell,
Yeah.
there's a couple times he grabbed. There's a couple times that he literally grabbed the jersey of oh God, who am I trying to think of? Point guard. Oh man, played for Philadelphia.
Iverson.
Yeah, Iverson. Um, grabs Iverson's jersey, pulls him back. Iverson's going, I'm going into the game. He goes, no, you're not. Sit down. It's like, it was the last 3 times you've been in there, you turned the ball over. What he goes, until you figure out, sit here for a couple of minutes and watch somebody go down the court and not turn the ball over, then we'll put you back in the game. John used to say he spoke 2 languages. One is English, the other is cursing. He used to. I attended a couple of practices at Georgetown, and this is phenomenal and fascinating. One, he he would ask if any of the Jesuit priests or anybody was in the gym at the time, and he would ask them please to leave, because he didn't want to embarrass them by his the language he used during practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you looked back about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 rows up from behind the bench area in the gym at Georgetown, there would be Red Auerbach sitting, watching John do his practices. And, out of total respect, no one would go over and talk to Red Auerbach. That was not something you did. He was there, just enjoying watching John Thompson coach.
Mhm.
But I think you hit on it a little earlier, and that is players are softer than they were in those days
Yeah.
because they have a transfer portal situation. I personally am not a big fan of these signing day situations where guys have got 6 caps in front of them, and they go down to the last second and they pull the cap out and put the cap on them. He's like, really?
Yeah,
You haven't done a damn thing yet on a football field, and you're going to tell me that this is, you do this? I mean, I don't. Yeah, maybe I'm too old school about it, but I don't like that. You either, okay, fine, you attend to school. Just, if you want to make the announcement, fine, make the announcement. But really,
Well,
you're gonna grab a hat and that's yeah. So you're disrespecting 3 other teams by picking the one hat up.
yeah, they'll have 6 hats on that table, toss all 6 of them into the crowd, pull
Mhm.
out 2 more out of their bag, and finally unzip their jacket and be wearing the shirt.
Right.
They go through it all.
Yeah, that's that kind of stuff I'm not crazy about. I mean, you're getting an opportunity to play in whatever league it may be, and you're fine, do it, but prove to me you can play.
Yeah, yeah, and I think now, and it's not something that I can say concretely,
Mhm.
or it's just I think guys who are at the top of these recruiting classes and have been
Mhm.
at the top of these recruiting classes,
Right.
it doesn't feel as much of like a privilege
Yeah.
to play here. It feels like they're like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be, which is good to a certain extent. But then you have guys like Darren Peterson who go to Kansas and play a third of their games and check themselves out at halftime sometimes.
Right.
So it's like maybe you do belong, and that's fair, and your talent will determine that. But your attitude can also go a long way into being who you are as a complete player. A complete player isn't a guy who has every facet of their game in great shape. A complete player is somebody who has a lot of the facets of their game in great shape, but on the mental side, they've got that figured out as well. And
Right.
that's it's something that makes Scotty Scheffler golf. It's something that made Tiger Woods great in golf. A lot of these guys, Tom Brady, there's a reason that he was who he was, is because his mental game was there, but he could do it physically as well. Like that's what it takes. It takes that leveling off of the two, and you can get a long. Your physical talent can get you a long way,
Mhm.
but at some point, if you don't pick up that mental side of things and you're not more checked in to what you're doing, then eventually it's going to catch up with you.
Mhm. Well, this is one of those discussions to be continued, as the old saying goes. All right, it's come to that point in time. What are you gonna be watching this weekend on TV besides the Red
Um,
Sox?
yeah, probably the Genesis.
Mhm.
I do really like Riviera.
Mhm.
It's of course that like when I first started watching golf, I was like, I'm not watching the Genesis. It's a place that's grown on me. I like the golf course a lot.
Mhm.
It's in really good condition, and it's a solid field. Like it's not gonna be a cut that's gonna like it. The cut itself may cut like 2 or 3 guys, because to miss the cut, you have to be more than 10 shots out of the
Mhm.
limit. So yeah, it's not going to be a big cut, but it's going to be a really good tournament. Because I do think it's going to firm up, and I think you're going to get a little bit more of what Riviera should play like, especially on Saturday and Sunday.
One of the other things about Riviera is it's a course where very, very famous Hollywood stars played. Uh,
Hmm.
you're talking about going all the way back to the Humphrey Bogarts and the Catherine Hepburns, and all of these people were members of Riviera in a time. Sinatra. I mean, all these people. Sinatra didn't even play golf, but he was a member of Riviera. Um, if you can imagine, back in the day, it cost $75,000 to be a member at Riviera. It now costs
Oh, it wouldn't be too bad.
what? Well,
That's
back then, I mean, $75,000 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It still is a lot of money.
Yes.
Cost you 250 grand to get in there now.
Yeah, that was I was playing the comparison of like 75 compared to what it is today.
Oh yeah. But 75 in 1930s and 40s money, that was
yeah.
That was a pretty steep entry fee from that standpoint. So yeah, it's an amazing course. It's got a great history, and if you like histories of courses, as we do as golf fans, that one's one of the ones where you really kind of, if nothing else, if you're out in the Pacific Palisades area of LA, it's about 20 minutes, by the way, from UCLA's campus in Westwood. You can wander over there and take a tour of the course. You can't play it, but you can go over and take a tour, and it's a very cool place. You can also eat lunch there.
Yeah,
so
the February.
not a bad lunch.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Yeah.
you'll be watching that. I will be contractually obligated to be in Washington for the Duke Michigan game, which I think will be. I'm excited for it. I think that matchup. After I watched the game that you watched with Duke and Carolina, I think the Duke Michigan game is going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's going to put one of the best freshmen in the country in Cam Boozer on really what is the biggest stage. Like Duke and Carolina is big. It's always going to be big. But a 1-3 matchup, it brings a certain level of media hype and attention that, is probably going to be a little bit more than he got for that Duke and Carolina game, especially considering they were going on the road.
Right. I'm wondering, I was curious as to why the Michigan Duke game is on ESPN at 6:30, and the Arizona Houston game ends up on ABC at 1:00. I would have thought they'd have flipped that one around, but evidently not. So it is what it is. But that basically means that you're going to get out of the arena around 9:30 from that standpoint. So you have plenty of time left for the evening, should you wish to. So that place is going to be sold out, which it already is. So it'll be a very entertaining thing. And then we'll be back here on Monday to recount what goes on. And you can tell us from Red Sox Nation how many people are upset because somebody at Northeastern struck out, 2 or 3 guys on the Red Sox team.
Yeah, there's 2 guys. If Masataka Yoshida or Christian Campbell strike out against a Northeastern guy, they are going to get torched.
My late nephew is a graduate of Northeastern University, and loved the school and did was the voice of their hockey and their basketball. They did have a football team at one point. And then he became the voice of Harvard for a year. And so it was, that Red Sox Northeastern thing was always something that everybody was excited about. So, it's, it will be fun to watch, Northeastern and the Red Sox play this afternoon.
Yeah.
All right, boys and girls, thanks for being with us. Have a safe and enjoyable weekend. I'm sure that you'll be back here on Monday and tell us what you watched, and keep us honest as we get closer and closer to March Madness. And the Olympics will be over this weekend, and we'll see how the U.S. men's hockey team does as they go for the gold. Canada got upset, I believe, did they not?
They are current. It looks like they're going to win. They are up 3-2 with 7 seconds, I believe.
In against the U.S. or who?
That's against Finland. Yeah, they got
Oh,
30.
Finland. They got that's right because Sunday is the championship game.
Yep.
All right. Well, everybody have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back with you on Monday.